They say the universe doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to who you are. And who you are is dictated by your attitude, not the one you show when things go well, not the smile you wear when people are watching, but the one that lives behind your eyes when no one's looking, the one that rises when the odds crush down, the one that whispers when the world shouts over you. Attitude isn't just a feeling. It's not a slogan on a mug or a poster on your wall. It's your mental compass. It's the silent architect of your destiny. Every moment you wake up, your attitude sets the trajectory of your life. Before your feet hit the floor, before you check your phone, before you say a word to another soul, your inner dialogue has already declared war or peace on the day ahead. And here's the truth most never realize. Your attitude is the only thing in this world you have absolute control over. You don't control the weather. You don't control traffic. You don't control what others say, think, or do. But you do control how you respond. You do control the lens through which you view the world. And that lens determines whether you rise or fall. This is the difference between the ordinary and the legendary. Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times before inventing the light bulb. What carried him through wasn't just intelligence, it was attitude. An unbreakable posture of belief, patience, and vision. He didn't say, "I failed 10,000 times." He said, "I found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's not just optimism. That's power. That's attitude. Henry Ford was told he couldn't mass-produce automobiles. They laughed. But his attitude wasn't built on their doubt. It was built on unshakable conviction. His response? Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Your attitude is the key that either locks or unlocks your potential. You can be brilliant and broke, talented and lost, passionate and stuck. If your attitude is poisoned by fear, doubt, or victimhood, you will never move forward. But if your attitude is made of iron will, radical ownership, and the refusal to stay down, no door will stay closed to you. You don't need more talent. You need more hunger. You need the kind of fire that turns I hope into I will. Every champion, every creator, every world changer you admire, what they had in common wasn't perfection. It was the right attitude in the face of pressure, failure, and criticism. They fell and chose to rise. They were rejected and chose to build anyway. They were mocked and chose to believe anyway. Because your attitude is your declaration to the universe that you are not a slave to circumstance. You are the author of meaning. And that kind of person cannot be stopped. The world will test you. Life will hand you storms dressed as ordinary days. It won't ask for permission. It won't wait until you're ready. It will just arrive unannounced, indifferent, and brutal. And in those moments, your attitude will either be your armor or your anchor. See, a poor attitude demands sympathy. A powerful one demands victory. It's the unseen force that determines your decisions, your discipline, your direction. It's the fuel behind persistence when motivation fails. Because let me tell you, motivation is seasonal, but attitude, if forged right, is eternal. You don't become resilient in the sunshine. You become resilient in the storm. Not when the doors fly open, but when they slam shut. Not when you're praised, but when you're ignored. That's where the true warriors are born. In silence, in rejection, in the furnace of trial. And it's there that attitude speaks louder than words. Winston Churchill once said, "Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference." He wasn't wrong. His country was on the brink of collapse. Bombs fell. Fear choked the streets. Yet it was his iron-blooded attitude that carried an entire nation on its back. Because people don't follow skills. They don't follow titles. They follow spirit. And spirit is forged through attitude. You walk into a room with belief in your spine, and the room changes. You speak with conviction in your voice, and people listen. You stand in the ruins of yesterday, still holding your vision. And the future begins to bend toward you, but it doesn't come from ego. It comes from clarity, from deciding that no matter how hard it gets, your mindset won't bow to chaos. This is what separates the successful from the spectators. They don't wait for permission to believe in themselves. They don't surrender to setbacks. They build a fortress inside their mind, a place where defeat is just data, where criticism is fuel, where attitude isn't reaction, it's creation. Because at the core of all achievement is this one truth. You are not your circumstances. You are your choices. And your first and greatest choice is how you show up when everything is on the line. Your attitude is the signal you broadcast to the universe, and the world responds in kind. Walk like a victim and the world gives you chains. Walk like a victor and the world opens doors it never showed others. Not because it's easier for you, but because your energy dares to command more. People often say, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond. That response, that split-second decision between fear and faith, between retreat and resolve, and that's attitude. And it doesn't just shape outcomes, it shapes identity. Because who you become in the fire is more important than what you lose in the flame. The legends you admire and the Lincolns, the Fords, the Disneys, they weren't strangers to pain. They weren't lucky. They were stubborn in belief and radical in attitude. Lincoln failed in business, lost elections, battled depression. But he stood anyway, taller, stronger, clearer, because his attitude wasn't tied to results. It was tied to purpose. Ford didn't invent the automobile, but he revolutionized the mindset behind production because he believed every man deserves to drive his dreams. That was attitude. Walt Disney, fired for lack of imagination, lost everything. Yet he kept sketching, kept dreaming, because his attitude refused to accept smallness in a world of potential. You see, success doesn't require genius. It requires grit wrapped in vision. It requires an unshakable posture toward life that says, you may hit me, but you will not change me. This world will throw noise at you, fear, judgment, doubt, distraction, and your attitude becomes the filter. Let the poison in and you become a prisoner. Filter it out and you become a force. That's the truth. You can't always choose the battles, but you can choose the warrior you bring to them. And here's the secret the masses don't realize: attitude is a skill. It's not inherited. It's not reserved for the lucky. It's trained, daily, in silence, in discipline, in how you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. It's built in the mornings you rise when you'd rather sleep, in the moments you speak belief louder than fear, in the hours you invest in vision instead of excuses. You are always training something, doubt or destiny, and the cornerstone of it all is attitude. The attitude you carry each day is more than mindset. It is magnetism. It pulls people, circumstances, and energy toward you in direct alignment with how you carry yourself. Speak with certainty, and the world hears leadership. Move with conviction, and doubt starts stepping aside. Wake up with gratitude instead of resentment, and somehow, doors that were rusted shut begin to creak open. This isn't mysticism, it's mechanics. Your inner world builds your outer reality, brick by brick, thought by thought, belief by belief. And at the center of that construction is the architect called attitude. Most people build unconsciously, reacting, complaining, drifting. But the few, the ones who rise above the noise and light up cities with their ideas, they are deliberate. Their attitude is designed, not based on the weather or their bank account, but on their mission. Because when you're clear on your mission, your attitude becomes bulletproof. You're no longer shaken by rejection, because you understand rejection is just redirection. You don't spiral from criticism, because you know critics only aim at people doing something worth aiming at. And you don't stop when it's hard, because your attitude reminds you that every storm, every delay, every detour is shaping your strength, not subtracting from it. Let this sink in. It is your attitude in the struggle that determines whether you walk out with wisdom or wounds. That's why two people can go through the same fire and come out different. One is scarred, the other is sculpted. What's the difference? Attitude. When Thomas Edison's factory burned down, destroying years of prototypes, he didn't cry, curse, or crumble. He turned to his son and said, "Go get your mother. She'll never see a fire like this again." That is not ignorance. That is spiritual superiority. A man whose attitude transcended circumstances. He rebuilt, and he gave us the light by becoming the light. If Edison can rise from ashes, what's stopping you from rising from discomfort? Your past doesn't define your future, but your attitude about your past does, so choose wisely.